welcome to Turtle Tracks Podcast. This is your host, Brian Van Hooker, and I'm here with Justin Ishmael, an artist, toy maker, and the former CEO of Mondo. Right now, there was a new release of the Pitch Turtle from Bottleneck Gallery and him, and we wanted to talk about that as well. But before getting into all that stuff, Justin, tell me your background with turtles. Did you grow up on turtles, or?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, I was born in 1984, so I was more of a cartoon guy, like turtle cartoon, and then the entirety of anything turtle merchandise license related, like had turtle clothes and turtle figures and turtle school stuff, like folders and lunch boxes. And yeah, I I was the typical uh, little kid obsessed with turtles, drawing them all the time for sure.
Oh, nice. Fast forwarding a bit, so how did you end up at Mondo?
I grew up in Kansas City, and I ended up um, moving to Austin and started working at the Alamo Draft House. And I guess, long story short, a opening at Mondo was there. I kind of took over running that, and yeah, over the years, we went from posters to, um, you know, we started to kind of do other things in addition to that. Like we had a soundtrack label where we did vinyl records. We had a gallery. We had a convention at one time called MondoCon. And then, yeah, I was a big toy fan and toy collector, and thought it would be a good idea to kind of diversify into that world. So, yeah, um, we started doing toys, and like actually one of the first even non-toy related licenses we got at Mondo when I started to kind of do licensing stuff there was it was when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was owned by Four Kids pre Nickelodeon, and so I
Oh,
had that license with them. And then once we got into toys, we went and talked to Viacom, Nickelodeon, and got the turtle license and did the six scale turtles there, among other things. The Kevin Eastman turtle, first turtle, that sort of deal. The Mousers. Um, but yeah, yeah, turtles has always been kind of something I've been interested in, specifically the Mirage era turtles. Now that I'm all grown up, like I like the Peter Laird, Kevin Eastman story. I still like cartoon, and I like pretty much all the iterations, like the Ciarnielli. Uh,
that show's excellent.
oh, it's amazing! It's incredible. I mean, I'm always a big fan of things where I don't have any connection to it, and I go into it, and it gets me. Like I have huge respect for that. So his show is like, I remember watching it and seeing all the Easter egg stuff in the background for like Mad Max, or he'd have Jeffrey Combs as a voice, or just like horror fan stuff. I was like, wow, is this for real? Like, is this intentional? And then kind of learning more about Zero and the people that worked on the show, and yeah, it was like, oh, I this is amazing. Like, I really really like this show. I mean, to this day, I still think it's one of the best Turtles versions ever.
Especially when they're in Northampton, like the amount of horror influence in that show is huge.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was really impressed with that. Kind of it's cool to see a new version of Turtles. I thought the designs and stuff looked good, but then having all of that extra kind of, clearly he's a movie nerd and likes movies and horror and comic books and stuff like that, and kind of not heavy-handedly putting that stuff in. It was really cool to see kind of slowly start to be like, wow, and then kind of looking for it going forward, like in every episode, kind of be like, okay, what's he gonna stick in here? What's he gonna put in?
Like my favorite show is still the original cartoon, but I kind of think objectively, I think that Zero's show is the best show. Like it's got the
I
very much
mean, I
comedy
think if
drama. It's
if
so
you're yeah, if you're trying to watch it just for, it's kind of like when you try to go back and watch something like Masters of the Universe, for instance.
sure.
it's kind of hard to watch. Like in a like you can only watch maybe a couple before it kind of gets like, okay, I need like, at least for me, like I need something more with it. I need like the story. And I think that like I rewatched the Ninja Turtles, the Wolf one, and uh I really enjoy it still, but I think with Zeros for sure, it's more of a, you know, it has a story to it. Like it's more of a modern retelling of all this stuff. And it's, I think, just because it was on the channel that was on, you think like kids show, but I think it's not necessarily a kid show. It feels more Pixar-esque, where it's an
Yeah.
all adult, it's an all ages type of thing that kids can enjoy, but adults can watch for and get more out of it than just, like, yeah, pizza turtles and like, yeah, it's just different. So yeah, I think for what it is, like it's probably the best storytelling turtles thing that's out there.
It's funny. I think like the Fred Wolf. I definitely know what you're talking about. Um, like I tried to revisit. Like I liked Power Rangers when I was a kid, and then I tried revisiting as an adult, and I was like, wow, this is really stupid. Like I couldn't
Yeah,
couldn't stomach even watching 5 minutes of it. I still like the Fred Wolf show because I think like it's still funny. Like the jokes hold up to me. So like
sure.
something different about it that holds up than it was more so than when I was a kid.
Has a
Um,
really good voice cast too.
that
Like
cast is amazing.
it's
I
really
interviewed all the
awesome. Like
writers.
legitimately, like yeah,
Yeah.
it's really like Shredder and beat everyone. And like it's kind of weird too when you watch extended periods of it where they start like, was it like Rob Paulson couldn't record because he lived in New York and they moved it to LA or something? It's like that thing where they start changing the voices a little bit
Yeah,
of
the
the
last
turtles,
season.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of jarring.
There's
You're
also
like,
like
wait, that's not
occasionally
right.
occasionally it would also be just different actors. Like there are random episodes where Greg Berg is Donatello instead of Barry Gordon. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I probably like Barry Gordon probably was sick or something this day, and they're like, we're just gonna record with this other guy because we have
Yeah, and
1,000 episodes
you
to make.
you just think that like, oh, everything, obviously we were alive back then, so we know like you didn't have the internet and you didn't have the capability to do, digital type of things like recordings or whatever. But like, yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think like, oh yeah, we'll just have another person do this voice that's been on the air for so long.
Right.
Just like,
So
what really? Like you couldn't wait? You needed to do it right now. What I don't know what the reason is, but it just seemed weird to me. But yeah, it's definitely jarring when, I mean, I know that like um that happened in Ciro's version too, where like wasn't it Leonardo was
yeah, I know that was for a
um
reason, but yes, absolutely,
yeah, but
yeah.
like it changes and you don't really mind as much. It's not it doesn't really like, it's not as jarring as like
Yeah.
when, like you said, Donatello or Raphael isn't Donatello and Raphael, and you're like, wait, what is this? Who's talking right now?
Yeah. So prior to Nickelodeon getting the turtles at Mondo, what turtle stuff did you do? Was it just stuff linked to the 2003 show, the Four Kids show, or was it a bunch of stuff?
I did T-shirts
Okay.
and we did posters. So the license included like the movie. So there's like movie posters of the actual like,
I've seen some of
um,
those. Yeah.
yeah, we did that. And then there was probably a couple of, there's like a handful of posters, like just kind of, you know, just turtles stuff. Like I think JC Richard did a turtle poster where they're coming out of like a portal, like Dimension X type thing. Um, and but yeah, I mean, I really feel like the most memorable thing we did there was the 6 scale line, and then the first turtle, the Kevin Eastman first turtle.
So I'll include a picture with the thing for the 6 scale line, but it was just to fill in the audience. It was this 1/6 scale line of the first of the four turtles. It came with alternate heads. I still have this set, by the way. I love this set. It came with alternate heads where they were all the different color masks, but also each head had a red mask. And then Raphael had had a head with no mask at all. Um, and it was a really cool upscaled line. Is there any highlights you have from putting that line together? Because it's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like going through the comics and picking out like because so like the comics and stuff too, but at the time, and I still think they stand up. I mean, it's like some of the only turtle figures I have in my like displayed toy collection, but it's the original NECA Mirage
Yes, those are excellent.
turtles that
Yeah.
the Four Horsemen did, and I really sought. I work with Four Horsemen now pretty much. I wouldn't say exclusively, but they do most of the things that I work on: sculpts, prototyping, painting, anything. They've just been my favorite for so long. But like when we were making the six scale versions, that was definitely the kind of bar to hit for me, where they needed to be in that same spirit. They needed to be able to do everything they like posability. I thought they really nailed it with the interpretation from the original comic books, everything. So those were a huge influence on those. But then, yeah, kind of going through and pulling out little Easter egg things. Like, Donatello came with his uh, blaster from the one shot. We had an Utrom. We had the
Little Orphan
the
Alien.
little. I was trying to think of the name. Little
Yeah,
Orphan Aliens in
I
there.
was gonna
Yeah,
bring it up. I was
yeah,
like, there's so much like cool side stuff. The
yeah,
Utroms are cool, but the highlight for me was the Little Orphan Alien because I was like, I didn't know what it was at first.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I like that. Like
yeah.
he's
Well,
stumping me.
that's good. I'm glad you didn't know because we were trying to like. I wanted to have the very broad references. Like okay, I understand these. You have the ninja stars. You have all the weapons stuff, obviously, and you have the turtles. But then having the extra little things that the deep cuts for fans that know the book, and then like kind of like you, where you're like you figure it out, and you're like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, I'm glad, and that mission accomplished.
I remember those releases, and I'd forgotten about this till now, and now I'm like filled with regret. Um, Not at the time either getting them fast enough, or maybe they were more money, but like there was the exclusive ones where it came with one other accessory. I think it was like Donnie's like arm thing and
Right? Yeah, yeah,
other things. And I was like, oh, I missed those. And now I'd forgotten
yeah.
about it until now. So
Yeah, I know the Mousers came with like a brat or rats that they could eat on. Um, yeah, there was it's kind of a little trick. I mean, like the sideshow was like, six scale was like very not like it's not hot now, but I feel like there wasn't really like um kind of like the smaller sizes, right? Like that are now like 12th scale and stuff like that. Like it was pretty much just like you had your kind of typical 6-inch action figures, and then you had six scale, which I was buying a lot of six scale at the time. So we wanted to do kind of like stuff in that same scale. Like, I think the turtles at six scale are more like 10 inches versus like a 12-inch figure. They're a little bit squattier.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, it's one of my favorite projects to work on for sure. I mean, again, like, I was happy you asked me to do this because I just love talking about the turtles. Like I think I've realized like it's something that's going to be my favorite thing forever.
yeah.
Like it just there'll be no like it just won't run out. Like there's so much stuff. There's always going to be another image that I haven't seen before or a story that I've read. Like, you know, even like Kevin Eastman with like Tundra, like that's one of my favorite things to read about and learn about is like, his whole, using the money he got from Turtles and doing the Tundra project and heavy metal and stuff. So yeah, it really feels never ending for me.
That line, I love that they had the different skin tones, so to call kind of a Playmates callback, which I loved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of my favorite accessories, and I have it on my desk right now, like I literally see it every single day because they're like an awesome size, is the four baby turtles in that Splinter.
Oh, right, right.
Those are great. Like the size of those was such like that in 1/6 came to be this awesome little like upscaled version of the baby turtles, which I love. It's like one of my favorite things.
Yeah, one of my favorite like Playmates things was the ooze turtles that came in the ooze cans. Like I really
Yes.
like the glowing ones and stuff. Those are really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, they do kind of remind me of that, and I hadn't thought of it, but you totally.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was kind of just like that line was kind of like I said, like the broad, the specific, the deep cuts and stuff, and then kind of like, okay, what do I really like just personally from um, collecting turtles when I was a kid, or even now, and it's like, oh, the little like I like small things. Like I really like tinier things like that. So like, yeah, like the little splinter and stuff. Yeah, I'm glad you like those too.
I'm trying to remember now. Like each of them came like with like a little buddy. I remember two Utroms, the Orphan Alien. Is there? Oh, Leo. Oh, Leo came with Splinter. I was trying to figure out the most. I know there was another like little guy or something. That's what it was. I was trying to like figure it
they
out.
all came with a turtle, right?
They all came with a turtle. They
Yeah,
all
yeah,
came
yeah.
with basic weapons, and they all came with a secondary little buddy
A little bit.
character.
That's
Whatever
my
word.
little turtle buddy.
Yeah. So I couldn't remember what it was for a second there. It was Splinter. That's it. Um, I never got the Mausers. Were they fun to put together? I never. I was
Yeah, they're
afraid of
amazing.
like what it is. Mausers is something I either need zero of or 30 of.
That was me with the foot soldiers when I was little. I,
Yeah,
I,
you
I
bought a lot.
distinctly remember my parents were going to do taxes, and I had just gotten a foot soldier, and I was trying to make the case to them that I needed more because there wasn't just one.
Right.
It really bugged me, like I was like, I need more of these because I can't. He's not like a single person. There's like he's multiple. He is legion.
Yeah.
We need like I need at least like three. You can't have two. You need like three plus. And they're
I
just
think
like,
they
what are
at
you
least have
talking
to
about? That's
with
not
foot
happening.
soldiers. I at least have to have them outnumber the turtles. Like
Right. Yeah.
I usually
Yeah.
have
So
settled
you,
on
you need at least
eight.
five. Yeah.
I usually have settled on eight, so that way they
Yeah.
can like kind of flank Shredder. Like I collect a lot of the NECA line, like pretty much all of the NECA lines, and like I usually be like, all right, eight makes it feel like a lot to me, and I stop there. But like, yeah, I totally get that. So like with Mausers, I was like, all right, these are not that cheap. They're cool, but I just I cannot buy 10 sets of these. So I didn't buy.
So this is something I'll give you like a little exclusive, I guess, on this
Sure.
this this uh this program. Um, Mousers are like one of my favorite things, and I don't know when it's going to come out, but we have started the process for a 1-to-1 scale mouser.
Oh, see that you could have one of. That's cool.
Yes,
Holy
yes,
shit,
it
that's
would.
awesome.
Yeah, literally, it'll be like as if the mouser was real in real life. Like I wanted one. I was like,
Oh, that is cool.
I want it to be fully functional. I want it to be, like the mouth opens and closes, the eye lights up. It can,
Oh wow.
extend. It can collapse. It can fold up. Like so, that's it's sculpted. It's in the works right now. So I don't know when it's planned to come out yet, but that's one of the turtle things that I have cooking right now is a one
Oh
to
man,
one
thanks for
scale.
sharing that. I am that
Yeah,
that to me is very cool. Like that's
yeah.
would it be like an upscaled version of what we saw you do with Mondo or different?
Essentially, because those are like the Mondo stuff was like pretty much my preference on what it should look like,
Sure.
and so uh, like again, like kind of me going to the source material, which is the Mirage books. That is basically it's not like an exact version of that piece. We made
Probably
changes
vary a
to
bit
it,
too, panel to
but
panel.
it's basically that, because
Yeah.
that's like I said, that's like what I envision the perfect mouser looking like. So when you make it like 3 feet tall or whatever it is, um, that's
Really
just what it
three
is. I
feet
mean, I
tall?
have like, huh?
Wait, is 1-to-1 3 feet tall on that?
It's
Holy
like it's in between like 2 to 3 feet. I
oh
think
my God, that's great.
it's large. I mean, like the idea too was I wanted it like to because like even in your room, before we started, I could see you had like a collection room, or at
Yeah.
least what I think I saw. But I have one too, and I think a lot of people that have turtle stuff specifically have a collection room. So I wanted this to kind of sit and be a prominent piece in the collection room. So when you walk in, like people are like, "Oh, what is that?" Like, it would be this. It would be this. Not like when who was it? NECA put out like the 1-to-1 scale. Like I think they're 1-to-1, but they had like the larger TMNT statues.
Oh, the
Like,
Leonardo?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like for me. I'm like, and they're cool and all, but like I didn't. That's like too big for me. It's like having
Okay.
like a mannequin or something in your like. I didn't want it. I didn't want something that big, but I was like, I want something larger turtle wise. And I just thought like having a like I too like 1-to-1 scale. Like, what would it look like in real life? And so the Mouser, that was one where I'm like, oh, it's small enough, but yet big enough to like. It's almost like Jumper Mashinder, like a Mazinger Z Shogun Warrior type of thing. Like I
Okay.
like the size of those. Like they're very manageable. They're very vertical. They look good in the collection. They have cool colors. So I thought the Mouser would be something like that, where it's like, you know, you can put a little rat in its mouth. You can turn the eye on. You can do a lot of stuff, and it's, we would. The plan too is to have multiple colors. You have your
The only thing I have
you
that's
have
kind
your
of like,
white, you have
yeah.
your
Oh,
silver.
oh, that'd be
I would
cool.
do the black because like I want to reference the Sierra Nelly Mousers. I have a ton of those. Those
Yes.
are like some of my favorites. So
I do
yeah, I
too. I
want to
bought
I want
like
to do
30 of those. That's
yeah,
yeah,
same. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean I have at least 6 of them on my desk right now and a bag full of them somewhere where they're just so nice to like put on things. Like you don't
Yeah.
really notice them. They're just kind of like around. I think it's really cool. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we're working on is the Mouser among other turtle related projects. But that's you brought the Mouser. I was like, oh yeah, maybe
Oh, I
I'll throw that
appreciate it.
in there.
Thank you. That's cool.
Yeah,
Like I totally dig that, like the 1-to-1, um, like almost like a centerpiece thing. Like I don't know, I wouldn't call
yeah,
this, but I have a huge Michelangelo, like that was part of the it was just a Target release, but it was part of Ciro's show. And I was like, it's not quite, I think it's like 4 feet. And I was like, it's
yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I was
remember
like,
those
it's
like Toys R Us and
close.
stuff, right?
Was that?
Those are like the were they meant to be like storage? Was
Yes,
that
the
kind of the
handles
idea for
open up, you can
those?
put shit in his back.
Yeah. Have you seen the ET like that? The hamper?
No.
There's like an ET hamper that came out in the 80s where it's like literally like a 1-to-1 ET, but the back opens up and you put like clothes in it or whatever. Like you could literally like climb in it when you were a kid. Like you could go inside and hide inside of it. But yeah, I just think that kind of thing is really cool too, where it's like it's a display, but it's functional. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, I don't have anything in the back of the Mikey, but I was like, I was so huge, and I was like, considering the shorters are already shorter, and that Michelangelo is the shortest of those four in that show, I was like, it's pretty close to being on scale.
Yeah, yeah.
Later
No,
on, they
those are
showed a Leo
cool.
that was the same height, and I was like, I'm not getting that because it's too short, and I can have one turtle or I can have four turtles, but two would just fuck with my brain. Like I couldn't deal with
Right.
that. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way.
but a huge Mauser, that's very cool. When do you think that'll be coming out?
Um, I would hope at the latest, like early next year. I need to check in with the guys and see like where we're at with it. But it's sculpted,
That's
like it's ready, like it's the files are done. Um, it looks great. I mean, it really like just digitally manipulating it to poses. It's like, wow, this looks really good. I'm like really into it. I can't wait to have it sample sent out, kind of play with it and see what it looks like in a room. That's what I like to do too, is put stuff on shelves. Like
yeah.
I'll get like the Peter Laird turtles that came in, the first ones recently. Like I got
Oh, I
those in
missed
and
that, dude, and I was so upset because like I have the okay, so I wanted to talk about the Kevin one because I
yeah,
that was a gap in my collection for years, and it drove me out of my mind because it was so expensive in the aftermarket, and I didn't really care. I didn't even care which version I got. I ended up getting
yeah,
the black and white one with the three different heads, which I think is the best version.
yeah. That's great. No, that's the perfect one.
But for years that bugged the hell out of me that I didn't have that. I finally got it, and then the Peter Laird one came out recently, and I was like, oh man, I missed it, and I couldn't. But that one's super cool. What was that like putting together the Peter Laird one?
It was cool. Like I really like um yeah, I really like the history. And that was like technically I guess the first in the TMNT first line, even though I was continuing the line I started at Mondo with the
Right.
Eastman one.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to give it a name to kind of signify like I'm not going to do just this one. I'm going to be doing more. So yeah, the Laird one was, obviously designed to match in style, size, and materials the Eastman one. So
Yeah.
you'd have that set. And then kind of jumping around to where like we did the pitch turtle, which was the first kind of the idea of like what did the first ever turtle toy, just kind of thinking like, okay, well, like the turtles and they became all of these media things, like all these different incarnations, but what did the very, very first one look like? So I kind of like asking questions like that and then answering to myself, and then you make a product of it or whatever and kind of tell the story. So the Eastman Laird first were the first turtles in general, and then it's like, well, the toys are so huge even now. Like, I mean, can you even think of a year like since we've been alive that there like haven't been turtle toys on the shelves? Like it was a very small gap. I feel like
Yeah, just like
it's kind of like Star Wars.
99
Yeah,
to yeah, '02, and that was about it.
It's like Star Wars, where it's like there was a small gap where there wasn't toys, and
Yeah.
then Power of the Force 2 came out or whatever, and it was like this whole thing again. So I feel like going into Target now, you have what you have like NECA, you have Super 7, you have Playmates, you have there's just always turtle stuff in every department.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of like what would the first one have looked like? And it looks very similar, like if you've seen it, it's very similar to like Donatello, but I think that what they did was they sculpted this and then took pieces of it and used them for all of the different turtles, pieces of the pose. And then I think the most significant thing they did was they removed the tails. So
Yes.
we got that was a big part of this. Was like we need to have the tail. Sometimes with style guides and things, they're like, well, you need to have the shell look like this. You need to have no tail and this and that. But it's like, no, this is the whole point of the TMNT first line is it looks similar, but it needs to look different enough because they didn't have it all dialed in the first round of sculpts and stuff. So kind of show that. Like we even left took a long time to get right, in my opinion, just because I was picky about like scanning and stuff. Because what would happen is like we'd have it scanned and they'd clean it up and
Oh
they'd
no, you
smooth
don't want that. You
everything
want the
out.
roughness.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd be like, no, we have to like you have to. I mean, yeah, sure. Typically, you'd want to do that if you're doing like a project where you wanted to clean, but like I wanted because like when they're sculpting in the shell, like the different shapes of the shell, you'd have these lines where it would be like I'm making this up, kind of like an octagon kind of shape or something, and then you'd have like the overrun of where the lines would intersect, right? They didn't smooth that out. I was like, no, we need that still. Like we need like the tool marks and we need, all of those things to show like this is basically like a sketch in clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it came out really well. I'm glad people were into it.
Yeah, so to clear up, so just to fill in the audience members who may not know that, so back in 1987, or I think it must have been, right? That was when the pitch turtle came out.
Yeah, so
Like, what? Tell. I
there
mean,
are
I can say it, or you want to
multiple.
tell the audience what the pitch
Well, no,
turtle
I mean,
was.
like I like kind of got weirded out like when we were about to release it because I had seen 86 and we had talked to Steve Varner and Eddie Mosqueda and they said 86. And then I saw a few things that said 87 and I'm like, I don't know. Like, because I want to be very thorough with everything I do.
Sure.
And then, Varner, I think, posted on their page and said 87, but in their book it says 86, and Steve said 86, and Eddie said 86. So I'm just kind of like, okay, it's 86 or 87.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
you get the point. Like I'm not trying to like uh you know be weird about it, but I'm just kind of like, okay, it's one of the two. It's 86 or 87, so it's like mid to late 80s. Uh, but yes, it was used as a Playmates commission Varner to make a toy based on the Turtles, which I think the cartoon was about to start, and they did this sculpt that and there's like I'm sure you've seen like the super collector type guys out there that actually have like castings of it
Yeah.
from people that worked on it, and so that image had been floating around. It's kind of like a brownish color kind of thing there we and And one thing that we were trying to do, like in all the photos that I've seen of the quote unquote pitch turtle, the original one, that is like ours was like 9 inches tall. The originals are the actual, it's like the size of the Playmates line, but it was holding like a stick, like a dowel rod stick. And so I wanted it to come with a stick, but just you can't really do wood. Um, Manufacturing wise, it's like really hard to do
Oh,
in
interesting.
China and get it shipped in. There's something about wood where like you can't, like it's like importing. It's really hard and it's really like it's just not. So we didn't end up doing that. But I really wanted to come with like a stick. But I figured like okay, you could probably just pop the stick out, the staff out and put a stick in if you wanted to when you get them in. But anyways, that was kind of the first turtle. This was used to pitch Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird to like do toys with Surge licensing and all that.
And it most closely, I mean, like, I don't. Here's one question I've had, and I think I asked Steve Varner on when I had him, but I don't know if he knew, or if he did, maybe I forgot the answer. Was that turtle deliberately Donatello, or was it just a turtle and they happened to put a bow staff in his hands because of the way the hands lined up? Do you know?
Um, I don't know either. I think that they probably looked at the comic book because from what I've been told, they had the comic as reference, so they would know that like the bow one is even in black and white, like the bow one is Donatello.
Right.
I don't know if at the time they had the colors picked out for the characters because you do see painted versions of that from
Yeah,
Varner, like
orange.
in
You
the
see a bunch
in
of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's in the orange, yeah, in there, but they have a Varner has a sketchbook out, and in the intro they have a photo of one, and he has like an orange mask on.
Yes. Yeah.
So we weren't allowed to paint, um, so that's why we had to do what we did with them. Like we weren't allowed to paint them like turtles. So, but if we were, that would have happened where we had like an orange mask one and obviously like a purple mask one. But I kind of wanted to reference the all of the history of the photos, but we couldn't like paint them like a turtle. So that was kind of one of the things that we weren't allowed to do.
And the face sculpt is very close to what Donatello's face sculpt would end up being
Yeah,
for that for
yeah.
well, okay, here's a question. Can you point out the differences from that to Donatello, that the Donatello that everybody had and knows?
I took photos of them. I had a Donatello and I had that one at the same time, and I took photos. I'd have to look at them to see, but like I think it's mainly like uh the stance is more forward facing in the final.
Hmm.
Like because he's kind of like if you were taking photos of the Playmates toys, you could take it, a front on angle and a left angle and a right angle. The one we did, it only really looks cool if you take it from that one shot,
Oh,
and
interesting.
maybe a
Sure,
little
sure,
bit.
sure.
If you turn it a little bit facing forward, it looks cool. But like you couldn't shoot it from the reverse side because you're shooting the back of the head essentially. So it's like I think that's part of it. They squared the figures up so they're more like facing you,
Hmm.
and then the arms obviously have changed a little bit. No tail, but I mean it's really close. I mean it's really like a great prototype representation of what the line would turn into. And like I
Absolutely.
said earlier, like they took pieces from this and applied it to the rest of the four turtles. But it's just I feel like it's just more of a like it really is more of a statue sculpt versus a playable figure just because it works in maybe a couple of angles and poses versus the final Playmates turtles where you could pretty much do whatever you wanted with them.
The plastron shape is quite different, I noticed.
Which one?
The front shell, like it seems like that part to me seems noticeably different, is how they sculpted
Mm,
it.
yeah, I mean, I think that like if I remember right, they have like the belt sculpted in and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, and there's
too.
no letter on
And
the belt. I love those little
right, yeah,
so cool.
yeah. Um, but yeah, like it's weird because you look at it and you're like, yep, that's exactly the Playmates turtle, but it's not.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
said, like there's differences, but like I feel like the vibe of that turtle is like it just you get the essence of it. You're like, no, that's the Playmates turtle, even though there are different things about it. Like, yeah, like like you think about like Darth Vader in Star Wars, like his stuff changes a lot, but you can't really like tell if you're not paying attention. You're
Yeah,
just like, oh,
yeah.
That's Darth
There's
Vader for sure.
yeah.
And it's like, well, the math changes a little bit here and there.
Did you have to work with Playmates or straight with Varner? Like, how did it kind of come together?
We worked with Varner. I
Sure.
first, well, I met Eddie Moschetta because in a similar fashion, I tracked down the Pluto sculpt from Toxic Crusaders, and he sculpted that. And when I went to his house, he was like, I'm just fascinated in toy history, and he worked on Masters of the Universe and all this stuff, and was like, co-founder of Varner, and he was bringing stuff out to like show me. He was like, "Oh, check this out," and he had like a turtle, and I was working on, um, I had done, obviously done the Eastman thing, the Eastman first turtle, and was doing or starting to do the layered. I was like, oh, this would actually be a really cool a Team NT first project. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
could we could we do this? And I think too the benefit of working with Eddie was his knowledge and uh, the stories about like the actual like creation of this. And there's Steve, and like I remember going to Comic Con every year, San Diego Comic Con, and Varner would have this booth. I'm sure people that are listening know what I'm talking about, where it's like this booth that you want to buy everything there, but nothing's for sale. And it's like I got cases of these castings and sculpts and things that have never came out before, and you're just like, oh, how much is that? And they're like, oh, it's just for show. You're just like, oh man, I want
Yeah.
that. So that was kind of one of the things for this too, was like, oh, I want to be able to like have one of those, even if it's not. That was kind of one of the things too, is like we don't have like the action figure license. So
Right.
we had to like scale it up and make it a statue and make it not a figure and not paint it. There was all these kind of things that we had to do to even do the project. That's why, I mean, it took 4 years to be done,
Really?
because a lot of,
Wow.
yeah, like there was the initial sculpting and all the creation of it, but then for years it was like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So we had to really like fight to get this thing made. um so yeah, finally came out. I'm glad it did. But um there was a kind of a lot of me explaining why this is different and what this is and that sort of thing.
I
I
saw.
think the having I think having the line helped too. You kind of like, this is the point of Team NG first, is to show like,
Yeah.
I've got more coming
I was gonna say, is there
non-turtle
more
wise.
firsts out there? Is there still more stuff to explore as that you can call firsts?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kevin Eastman's working on a couple things for us right now. Like, and that's a great thing too. Is I always try to work with the people that worked on it too. Like,
That's cool.
uh, when we did the uh first, the Kevin Eastman first turtle, like, Kevin would like make comments on it and stuff. Be like, okay, cool. Like, how about you? Like, here's what the back of the shell would look like, and this and that. So he's doing some turnarounds for me on some other uh,
Nice.
Team NT first designs, and hopefully they'll be out. Like, we can get started on them and get them out like probably later this year, early next year, type of thing.
The I want to bounce back to the first turtle in this, but I'll wait. While we're still talking about the pitch turtle, um, which I like looks beautiful. Like I really wanted one. I just couldn't do it. But I mean, like like financially. But like they you chose several different versions of it. Do you like? Can you explain what they are and if you have a favorite? Because they all look amazing. But I'm curious what the reasoning was behind the different versions.
Yeah, so we did the clay and the wax, which was, again, like we couldn't paint them.
Right.
So it was kind of a look at like, this is this is what they would have looked like. The actual first versions of this would have looked like. So like, some of the ones floating around kind of have these colors to them. So that was kind of the reasoning for that.
Like the kind of raw
And
color.
then, right, right, right. It's like, it's very production,
Yeah.
centric and production minded. And then the bronze ones were kind of uh,
Beautiful.
more
Good Lord.
for like there's like a more traditional bronze where it's like bronze. You think about like what bronze is. There's that one, and then there's one that's more of a patina green. So that was kind of the idea. Was like, okay, well, like we'll do like a bronze one, but we'll make it green. And just kind of, I mean, it's all preference stuff. I really like weathered statues. Like, you
Yeah.
know, they're in a park and they're turning like green and
Yeah,
whatever.
it looks
Like,
like moss is growing
so
on it. I love that. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I always kind of envision putting that with my plants and letting the plants overgrow on it, you know, and it'd be
Yeah.
like this kind of thing to live. And then you have the bronze one, which is traditionally like I really took reference from museum pieces and
Hmm.
tried to kind of look at it from that angle of like what would be like like literally like if you were to put this in the museum, what would be in like the museum for the turtle, the first turtle, and it was the bronze on the marble. That seemed like the classiest kind of uh timeless version of it. And again, kind of like being a collector, I wanted to look at this as like what would be like a really cool thing to have that there weren't a lot of that you could kind of show off with when you bring people in your room, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, what is that? It's like, oh, well, that's this, you know. And I like to do that too, where like the write ups that I write and the things that I like Paluto, the Toxic Crusaders thing or whatever. It's like you're answering a question, but you're also kind of like providing a script for people
Hmm.
to tell like what is that? Oh, I can tell you because when I bought this, there was enough information. Like I like to answer the why, and I really love it when people ask me like, why did you do this? Because like you won't catch me being like, I don't know, or it's just a product or whatever, because I have a reason for every single thing. I try to really like think this stuff out. So this one definitely was more of a, all right, like I know it's expensive, but if you're into it and you can afford it, this should be like one of the centerpieces of
Oh
your
God, yeah. Absolutely.
collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like remember the Playmates that had the trophy turtles, the gold ones, the shiny gold.
I
Like
was just about to talk about that. I got
yeah,
Leonardo.
that was another reference point. I was like, I want kind of my version of the trophy turtle.
I was just quick
So
to bring that up because I was talking about like the different sculpts, and I was like, that trophy Leonardo, which I got when I was a kid, somehow it survived. They still have it. Has a Donatello head on it, which I think is
uh
interesting. Like that, the little details of that are really
huh.
because they use. I think because Leonardo's head sculpt on the first Playmates wasn't not the best of the four, so
Yeah,
like they switched it to Donatello for that gold little statue, and I love that thing. So,
that's funny.
bouncing back to quickly the first Eastman and the first Laird, can you talk about like I don't know what was the biggest challenge for each of those? What was the biggest challenge of realizing those in 3D? Because they're very much a flat 2D drawing when they did them.
Yeah, those uh it was really kind of like figuring out and being okay with these can't necessarily be action figures yet. You know, like I'm not going to try to like articulate them. I want them to look like the drawing. And when we have them, we can put in limited articulation and stuff, but they're not going to be like, you know, it's, you've probably seen this. I mean, I've seen it around. They're like, they're like bag shots or something of NECA stuff that's coming in. And I think they're doing these as like figures. So it'd be interesting to see how they do them and articulate them and stuff. But like when I
Yeah,
was
I'm
doing it,
curious. Yeah,
it was mostly like I want to tell a story. Like I love telling stories with products, and so just having it exist, you know, and being as close to the thing as we could get it. Like, and that's why we brought Kevin in for the turnarounds on it to kind of be as accurate as we possibly could. On
mhm,
Laird, we couldn't get Peter,
sure.
so we just kind of like we kind of did our own thing with the backside of it, but really like trying not to get too caught up in the action figureness of the thing, to where we had to change things. Like even when I work on Scott Pilgrim with Brian Lee O'Malley, we did figures, and I wanted to match. Like I thought the most important thing was making it look like the art that he had done,
Sure.
and not trying to change it just to be able to pose the legs and stuff. So I feel like in when all is said and done on the first turtles, like the Eastern Laird ones, like they were fairly easy just once you got like the basic shape of it, like the
Mm.
proportions right, and they do have this kind of like likeness about them where as long as you had that right, like I wasn't really horribly concerned with how posable they were or anything. So yeah, kind of looking at it like a Safubi figure, like a Japanese like vinyl figure, where I do a lot of stuff with that, and those are very limited articulation. Head turns right and left, arm goes up and down, that sort of thing. So I feel like there's a world where that's respected, and it's not like, oh, it doesn't have double jointed, elbows or whatever. Like that was not important to me with these. It was just clearly like you said, kind of making it look like the drawing in 3D. So really trying to work with the best sculptors we could. Uh, Sculptor named Matthew Black did both of them. And we actually like he did the Eastman one when I was at Mondo, and then I got him to do the Laird one too because I wanted the same person on it. And that was like, you know, 10 years apart almost. So yeah, really wanted to match almost everything with those. So they would like, you know, sit on your shelf and be a set, but you would never like the idea that they came out so far apart, no one's gonna care at the end of
Right.
the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, if you're as far as the articulation goes, like, are you gonna is anybody gonna put them in a different pose than the one that they were drawn in anyway? Like,
I don't know. Like that
right?
was kind of my thing where like again, like I have to just use myself as the first example of like what I do. And so even if I get a Marvel Legends figure, right? Like I got Chris Star recently. I take him out, I look at him, he has his pose from the package when you take him out, and I typically will pose him in sort of a neutral actiony pose that fits within my shelf. And that's it. That's just it. And I have to assume that a lot of people do that same thing. I mean, of course there's people that like uh they Sergeant Bananas is a great photographer and stuff like that. Like you know what I mean? Like there are people that photograph,
Yeah.
but like I think that the average collector probably wants the articulation but doesn't actually use it. So that was kind of mine on these where it's like, yeah, the layered turtle and the Eastman turtle, the arms, the kind of like whatever the actiony arms, you're in that like fighting stance. They can move a little bit, but like the legs are going to be what they are. Like they have articulation. And again, going back to Safubi stuff, like you can move the legs, like they would have like some articulation, but if you move them, they won't stand.
Right.
So you know what I mean? Like if you can only do them in one pose. And I'm a big like I don't want to have a stand for my figure.
Me too. I
I
hate them.
really hate it. I
I
hate
don't
it,
like
and I
even the
need
clear
them.
ones that like
Yeah,
never
I don't like
disappear to
it.
me. I hate them.
Like there's a difference between like like if I have a Miles Morales or a Spider-Man figure and I want them jumping, like I can have the stands that will raise them up and that go around the
Oh, I
waist
don't
and
even
stuff.
like
But that's
those.
but that's like a different thing. Like I think figures when they're out of the box should be able to stand without peg feet or without a stand. And so like the first turtles, like those are very wide stances. They have typically wide feet. Like they're very steady. So I like that about them. Like I really hate it. I hate it when you get something and the legs are messed up and they don't stand. Like I like literally will just like sell it. I don't like to even have because it's what's the most annoying thing is that you have a case
Yeah.
and something falls and dominoes everything over. Like I just don't
Oh,
like it. So like I'm very like I know what I want out of a figure as a collector. So I try to bring that into producing everything too, as much as possible. And so, like with these, it's like that was they just lend themselves to that because they're not like you said, like you're not going to be bending the knee of the first Eastman turtle. At least on the one I did, like you didn't really need to. It wasn't part of the. It wasn't necessary.
it's very case by case for me. Like with NECA's toys, like I'm not an inbox guy at all. Like I open everything.
Yeah.
So
Right.
with NECA's stuff, like I like to take them out, pose them, make scenes and all that stuff. Like I like doing that stuff. But there are certain things that, like the Mondo first turtle, like like the 1/4 scale. I have the 1/4 scale movie turtles that they did, that NECA did, like,
Yeah,
or the 1/6 scale Mondo ones you did. Like those ones kind of end up being more statue-like, where they stay in one thing, and I never change them because
right,
they're bigger and they're also like, I don't know, they look good like that, right? But the smaller ones I like messing around with. But with the first turtle stuff, I can't imagine ever changing or wanting to change the pose because it evokes one very
right.
distinct drawing. Like I can't imagine
Yeah.
needing ever wanting more than that. So
And I typically like I like a static pose, but in vinyl or a plasticky type of material. Like we did the pitch turtle in resin, so it's more of like a statue. But that was kind of like you said, it's like case by case. Where
yeah,
like we didn't with it, there was no movement at all, and this was a toy that we were not allowed to make an action figure. So
sure.
it was just, from a licensing perspective and everything else, this was best served as a resin statue. The other figures, like they're like you're not going to take the stick out of the hand, right?
Right.
Like that's what this is. It's holding a weapon. The other ones are more like they're drawn in an action pose. So you have that little bit of leeway with the arms and stuff, but like there's not like a hip thing. There's not like you can't swivel them. Like, I don't know. It's just, uh, and I would actually wonder if, because if you look at the layered first turtle and you look at the pitch turtle, they're in a very similar pose.
Oh, interesting.
Very, 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 very similar. So if you're thinking about 1986 that they're making this, turtles had existed for 2 years. So there's a limited amount of
You're totally right.
uh,
Yeah, no, I see it. I'm just
imagery
looking
out
at it.
there. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if they had the images out there, on the table. They had the comics, and then they had the first versions, and they used that for that. I'm just speculating, but it just kind of like I'm like they're like I was saying, like you can't if you turn the layered, if you shoot it from the left side, you're getting shell. If you shoot it from the right, basically you're going to shoot the layered turtle the same as you're going to shoot the pitch turtle to
Oh yeah,
look
there's no
good.
other way to like. There's no other way to
Yeah,
or
right,
even look at it,
right. Like,
frankly.
but like even the Eastman one, you can shoot that multiple ways.
Yeah.
Like it's more of that final Playmates figure front facing look versus the layered one where it's very horizontal or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of a theory I have is like they saw this and kind of used that as a little bit of a reference
That's
mixed
interesting.
with mixed with other things. But yeah, I don't really know for sure.
Which color of the releases, which one was your favorite color of the Eastman releases?
Um, I like. Let's see which one I have out right now. I have the orange mask one, and I
So the
have
black and white
the.
orange mask. But you have the color one or the black and white one?
Oh, I have the all black and white one out, and then I have the color mask orange
Oh,
one.
nice. Sure.
So, but I mean, I really kind of probably my favorite is I ran out of room, so I started putting all this stuff away.
Sure.
So it's not, I wouldn't take that as my final answer, but I like the red mask stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just, to me, it's not necessarily always a red mask means Raphael. Like I'm just so miraged out. Like I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is how they were, and you can kind of tell who they were. I mean, I guess technically, the first Eastman one is with nunchucks or whatever, like Michelangelo, but still, like I think it's cool with the red mask.
I usually it's funny. Like I kind of when I was looking for them originally, and I really wanted I needed the red mask one, but I kind of have kept it most in the orange. Like I kind of like the incongruency of like I know the orange mask thing didn't come till like 5 years later at least.
Right.
I kind of like that it's the only opportunity to kind of put this design with this color, which is weird. What
Well,
about
it's
layered?
funny too. The black and white stuff typically for me, I don't like. I think that these came out really cool.
Mhm.
The sketch versions or whatever, the line work versions, but I typically don't like black and white sketch figures like that. Like it just depends on the execution, but
I
like
like a few. I
historically,
don't
I'm
have a
like,
lot. Yeah,
yeah, I'm like, I don't. I'd rather have the color version.
same.
Um, but yeah, these I think it was really important to kind of like hit. You know, there's a black and white version, the sketch version on paper as if it came to life, and so we really wanted to like try to do that as closely and properly as we could. So let's see what I have out for the layered ones. I might have them all out actually. But I mean, I think it's probably gonna be the same type of thing. Like I really like the color versions.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've got Red Mask and Glow actually out right now. The
I
all
love glow.
black
I'm
and
such a
white glow
sucker
one.
for glow in the dark stuff. Like I recently got all the Playmates ones from Mutant Mayhem that are glow in the dark. I just love. I'm such a sucker for glow in the dark toys.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like I really think it's fun.
The here's a question for you, bouncing back a little bit. I'm sorry. When you were
No,
at
it's cool.
Mondo, was there ever talk about doing anything beyond the uh the Mausers? And I was specifically wondering, was there ever a Mondo Gecko ever in the air floating?
Um, I mean, I wanted to. I
Sure,
left in 2015, but you know that I wanted to keep the line going.
sure.
Like I think it would have been cool, but I'm not really sure. Um, I honestly can't remember what we
Okay.
were talking about doing. I think it was more of a we have more stuff that we could do. You know, we would probably do like I mean there was stuff made. Like there were other versions of characters made, but I think typically like we would probably hit the we would like do the hits. I don't think Mondo Gecko was gonna come, but it was probably been like
Oh yeah, it would have been Shredder and stuff first.
Shredder and Foot Soldiers and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Like
wanted to.
I've always wanted a really cool like I think NECA did they were showing their really cool android body Krang at Comic Con, the huge one.
Oh
Like I
yeah, I'm
really
looking
thought
forward
that
to
was
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that covers it. So Pitch Turtle's sold out, but it's still worth checking out, and I think it's just beautiful to look at. So, um, I guess my last question for you is, who's your favorite turtle and why?
Like in just like the turtle world.
Yeah, of the four, which one's your favorite?
Oh, okay. Um, wow, that's a great question. I want to say in general, it's probably Michelangelo. In Ciro's version, it's Donatello. In the movie, the first 90 movie, it's probably Michelangelo again. And then the cartoon, when I was little, I was like Leonardo. So, yeah, yeah,
Awesome, man. I appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. This is great.
yeah, totally. It was fun.
Shell shock pizza kings can't stop these radical dudes. The secret of the ooze made the chosen few emerge from the shadows to make their move. The good guys win and the bad guys lose. Leonardo's a leader in blue, does anything it takes to get his ninjas through. Donatello is a fellow, has a way with machines. Raphael's got the most attitude on the team. Michelangelo, he's one of a kind, and he knows where to find it when it's party time. That's